Someone's endorsement of you, or lack thereof, has very little to do with your trajectory.
Martians landed.
Yes.
Wearing Prada suits.
Yes.
Drinking Henry's seltzer.
Yes.
Chewing juicy fruit.
Yes, and?
Your branding here.
Yes, brand.
Your message here.
Yes, and?
A verse about
Yes.
your product here.
Yes.
I'm Hirsch Redman.
Yes, and?
I'm a message therapist.
Yes.
And I have a podcast.
Yes, brand.
That's right, that's it.
Yes.
We'll help you fix the world.
Yes.
Or your bottom line.
All right.
Your bottom line.
Get it. I get it. Welcome to the Yes Brand Podcast.
Who's in the hot seat today on Yes Brand? It's none other than award-winning and best-selling author Aaron Ryan. He's written nearly 40 books. You can see behind him some of the titles if you're watching on YouTube. They span sci-fi, dystopian thrillers, children's tales, including the hit Dissonance saga, the End series. He's a lifelong storyteller. It's interesting that his second grade debut, The Electric Boy, was where it all started. And I often talk about my second grade production of The Wizard of Oz, of playing the Scarecrow. So I don't know what it is about second grade, but Aaron's creativity is fueled by wildly diverse life. He's a musician, he's a performer, he's a voice artist, and his work blends imagination, faith, and humanity, making him one of today's most versatile and heartfelt voices in speculative fiction. So welcome, Aaron, to Yes Brand.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. I should add, on a coattail of what you said,
Yes.
that I'm pretty sure it was second grade as well. I was also in an elementary school production of The Wizard of Oz, and I played a Winky Guard. I played a citizen of Emerald City, but I got to play an Winky Guard. So,
Winky
one of my
Guard.
highlights.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, the story with the Scarecrow, the quick story with the Scarecrow is I was sick the day that they did auditions, and I told my mom, if Mrs. Nestler, if the second grade teacher wants me in the show, then I will be cast as the Scarecrow. But I have no interest in playing any of the other roles, and I got it. But then again, I don't know that that's the function of my talent or my lack of intellect. I'm not sure which it could be either. Well, listen. So let's start with that wall behind you of all the titles, the Dissonance series, The End, which is another series. And what does it take? Let's start here. What does it take for an idea to truly inspire you enough to turn it into a novel, much less a series, but a novel?
Yeah, I think there's two different styles of writers. There's a pantser and a planner. And so planners, they will dot all their T's and cross all their I's, or the other way around. And I like that. And I do have, there's definitely a workflow and kind of a bullet list of the things I want to hit. But I'm so much more of an organic writer, and the way I come to a story is the same exact thing. I'm very organic to it. So we actually watched, as far as Dissonance is concerned, my wife and I watched for the third or fourth time, whatever, I Am Legend, and great movie, sad movie, but everything is overgrown, and there's lions roaming the streets, and there's weeds growing up through the cracks. And I thought, what if I wrote a book that was I was really intrigued by the idea of an alien invasion laying waste to the planet, a la Independence Day. Maybe there's some strains there, but on a global scale, and literally 85% of the population's been wiped out. And I love the visuals and the quiet ghost town nature of I Am Legend. I thought I'd like to have something like that, but in an alien invasion context. So that's what inspired me to start writing Dissonance, and then it just grew from there.
Yeah. Clearly you like, high stakes storytelling, stuff that's big. That's kind of a big, story, and also moral dilemmas. The end. The end is obviously influenced by your faith, and what's to talk about the end a little bit.
I really loved the series called Left Behind in the 90s. So
Hmm.
that was a really inspirational series. It was very robust, 12, 13 novels, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, I'll never forget it. I read it a few times through, and I wanted something that was somewhat like that, but had its own cruel twist. So it's not the end times. He's not the Antichrist. It is not, it's persecution, but not really on the scale of Revelation, right? It's essentially like a second Holocaust, meaning no offense to the Jewish people. We love our Jewish neighbors and friends, but it was similar to that in the context of the end times and tribulation. So it's basically a deluded techno trillionaire thinks he's the big capital A Antichrist of Revelation, and he's hunting down Christians in the year 2113, turned into a clean fiction saga. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I like the fact that there was something that my grandmother loved, Agatha Christie, and she used to say to me, as a writer, she would say, um, when you seek to write stories, remember what Agatha Christie says: never the obvious. It's never
mm,
the obvious thing. There's no point in writing something that we've seen. And that's one of the things, and you have some experience with your work being turned into movies. When Hollywood comes calling, often they're looking for something that already has existed, and one of the
hmm
beauties of them adapting successful novels is that at least the source material they're drawing on is your source material, not
yeah,
some other movie. But I think we like what's familiar, but we also like things with a twist, right?
we do. I love that quote too. I love it was your
Yeah,
grandmother who said that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she was quoting Agatha Christie. She was saying that Agatha Christie said of her own writing, never the obvious, and she thought that was a great lesson.
It's spot on. Oscar Wilde, one of my favorite quotes of all time. Oscar Wilde said, "Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken." Like
Yeah,
Ecclesiastes talks about there being nothing new under the sun, and we're just kind of greasing the same wheel, and it's been done before. You always want to write something that is a new spin on maybe an old yarn. And I like when something has refrains of something that but takes you in a completely different direction. Like, oh, I didn't expect that. It's very kind of a Stephen King move when you do that.
yeah, yeah. That's one of I was watching with my wife and our daughter, the 11-year-old. I was watching this thing called In the Tall Grass. In the Tall Grass, and it's I think a Canadian um, rendering of a Stephen King short novella that he wrote with some other author. So I was completely unfamiliar with it, but it has to do with people getting lost in this tall grass on the side of a road, getting lost in this kind of wheat field, and time starts playing with them. So you get every time you think you get what's happening, it's not what's happening. So you have
Yeah.
one person hear a voice and say, "Oh, there's a kid lost in the weeds. Let me go grab him and get it. He sounds like he's right there." That person
Right.
gets lost, and then you see the kid outside hearing the man in the weeds, another person in the weeds going, "Let me help that person." And it's constantly keeping you on your toes to try to figure out what's even happening in the moment, much less what the story is. So that's a very Stephen King kind of you think he's tipped his hand, and he hasn't quite tipped
Yeah.
his hand, you know?
It's a Rod Serling move. It's very Twilight
Oh
Zone
yeah.
move. I actually
Yeah.
have a tip of the hat to Stephen King. It's Dissonance is not a horror series, but when you put in alien
Right.
invasion, people tend to go, okay, then I'm going to put that under the horror column. So maybe in some respects it has some horror tropes and some horror bells that it's ringing.
Yeah.
But I did actually put a very Stephen King redirect in a later chapter of Dissonance Volume 1 Reality that I was so proud of because it's this character that's so dear, and you come to just really appreciate them and suspect nothing of them, and then they turn on you and you're going, oh no, 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 no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the joy of writing. Um, like when you're somebody's craving, you know, genre driven stories that are escapist in nature. The what happens after question, the where do we go
Yeah.
from here question, dilemmas, I guess, dilemmas that are very big, but also give us enough fantastical adventure that we don't feel like it's very hard these days to read or watch something that doesn't feel like a direct parallel to some of the challenges we're facing as a society. And and that's what I struggle with. So I am more often than I usually do veering toward escapist stories. Sci-fi, thrillers, horror, even horror in some cases is escapist because at
Very
least
much so.
yeah, you're going at your it's someone else's problem,
Yeah.
it's some other set of problems. But how do your characters take shape in your mind? Like for example, Stephen King inspired, this one kind of nod. But what is the inspiration for your characters?
Yeah, I love the question. I wish I could remember the author who said this, but he said one of the goals of your story and your writing is to get your protagonist up a tree, stuck up in a tree, and then throw rocks at them. And then that really, that reveals that's a conundrum for the character they have to find some panacea to get out of there. And that reveals a lot about that person's character, how they handle that, how they weather that storm. And so again, I wish I could. It was a Russian author who said that. But as I write organically and in a pantser style, fly by the seat of my pants, that's how the characters are developed. I find out as I go along. I don't have them all mapped out, other than basic characteristics of age, ethnicity, gender, and kind of a tiny little basic roadmap of who they are. I knew that I wanted the primary protagonist of Dissonance to be a cynic because he needs to
Mm,
go from on a character arc of cynicism to trust. Uh, One of a few character arcs he has to go on. But I love finding out, just as the reader does, or reader will, as I write a novel, I love finding out more about the character as I go along and not having it all planned out from the start.
yeah, and I kind of land somewhere in there as well. I like, when I wrote screenplays for a while. I never wrote fiction novels. I thought of it. I've written now a business book, but I haven't really explored that. But in coming up with outlining screenplays, at least, I always felt like I wanted to know where it ended. I did want to
Hmm.
know where it ended, but I wasn't married to knowing exactly how it got there. And I like the idea of, oh, here's a scene I didn't expect. Here's something that just popped up that the character did. Um, so how much do you know when you go into writing a novel?
I really go very organically. I don't know much. I love telling this to people because it really is so very true. It was chapter 4 of Dissonance Volume 1 Reality where I finally realized, as I'm writing, I didn't have this planned out. Oh my gosh, there's a much larger story here. And I literally stumbled into that and went, wow, this is no longer just about aliens. Granted, the title of the book in the series is Dissonance. It's people at odds with each other. It's two notes clashing. There's lack of harmony. I knew I wanted that refrain, but I had no idea how high up the chain it would go, and I had no idea of the underpinnings of society as it is in 2042. What's
Right.
happened with these people 16 years after an alien invasion? I didn't have that all. I didn't have a roadmap for that, and I loved again just finding that out as I went along. I really only knew that eventually we would have to have some kind of giant colossal face off with these aliens. But I didn't know if that was going to be in book 1 or if it was going to go, to book 3. It turned into a hexalogy before I even knew it. That's 6 books.
Yeah. Well, one of my questions was going to be, um, the next question is, how do you know when it's going to be a series? In other words, I always think of Misery, right? Where, Paul is she wants Paul to write, the next novel,
Or yeah,
the Misery Chastain series. And it's like, so who dictates it? Is it the popularity of the book, or does it start to feel like it's going to be a cliffhanger, or what happens there?
yeah. That's a really great question. I knew that I wanted to write at least one, but by chapter 4 of one, it was very clear this was going to have to be a much larger story with a lot more to mine. Especially given the fact that this is 16 years after an alien invasion. There's so much backstory that you can exploit, and exploit I did.
Yeah.
No one, by the way, no author, by the way, wants Misery to be a series because we're petrified of the whole, the whole premise
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
But
That's right.
yeah, I just it
Well,
just grew.
and that makes sense. So let's talk a little bit now about the Aaron Ryan brand. I feel like, you know, for me, I talk about in the work that I do, I talk about 360-degree, brands. In other words, someone says they're a psychotherapist, but they're also a orchestra conductor. Somehow there's something, connecting it. They don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater and just say, "Oh, I'm a psychotherapist," because they what makes them stand out is that they are all these things. You
Yeah.
know, you have the voice acting, but you also have diversity in the books that you're writing. You've written business books. You've had you continue to defy classification in many ways. Um, but how do you see your brand these days?
Yeah, so there's a very small contingent of my books that are not sci-fi. Granted, the kids' picture books are more fantasy than sci-fi, but still, it's kind of what six in one hand, half dozen in the other. I actually just published two nonfiction books. They have nothing to do with sci-fi whatsoever, but they're dear to my heart and they're subjects that I care about. So I kind of, again, organically follow that path, that breadcrumb trail, and see where it goes. I really only arrived at my own branding and figured what it actually is earlier this year. And it ultimately is a sci-fi enthusiast at heart. There's three parts in there. Very enthusiastic. I just am. It's just by nature. I'm kind of the hyper puppy. I got to show you this book.
Right.
Sci-fi. I've always loved science fiction. I just love that you talked about earlier, being very escapist. It is an off ramp from some of the harsher realities of life that give you a great, endearing rabbit trail to go on for a while.
Yeah.
So, sci-fi enthusiast at heart, my characters and my story has to be about more than just what you see on the cover. It really has to be about the characters' very human, very heart-based struggle in the end. Uh, Dissonance represents that, quintessentially well. It is my quintessential work because, yes, it's an alien invasion saga, but the story really isn't about these aliens that have ravaged the planet. They're awful, make no mistake,
Yeah.
but really the worst enemy of man is always man.
Yes.
And so 16 years after an alien invasion, you'd think we'd all be getting along with each other, but there's a corrupted heart issue at the center that we have to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, in its short episode span, Star Trek managed to drive home the idea that we're our worst enemy, that we never learn. All the advanced species and societies were always looking at Earth and going, well, they never learn.
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
and I feel like that's in there as well. So a sci-fi enthusiast, which I do, which I like. Um, I think Tolkien's like your favorite
Oh yeah. I mean, if
favorite
this says
author.
anything,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't even see the ring. So I mean, I didn't see the ring on your. You're
I
wearing a
wasn't
ring
wearing
on.
it. I'm still here.
Yeah.
See, still
There it
here,
is. I
still here.
see. Precious.
That
Um,
pressure.
so yeah. So tell us about some of your influences.
Oh, definitely Tolkien. This is I wear around my neck because it has my family's names inscribed on the inside.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I have my wife and two sons, 9 and 6, and so, but yeah, I wear it like this because it's a nod to Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings, not so much Hobbit. I loved the Hobbit. I still do. Not the movies, ugh, but I love the
Mm,
book.
yeah.
Singular, one book of Hobbit, one book.
Right.
Uh, but Lord of the Rings, I love the movies, but the books in that respect, they just propelled me somewhere I had no idea I could even go. I read
Yeah.
them for the first time, I think when I was 11 or 12, and they just absolutely opened my eyes in an epiphany of what being an author could be like. Granted, I was not so much pulled as much as I was just sucked in with
Yeah.
literally nothing to claw onto and no desire to claw onto it. When I read the first chapter of Lord of the Rings, and then you get to the Shadow of the Past, which is chapter two, that immense backstory, the stakes are introduced right away so high, you just go, oh, it's such a compelling story. Tolkien created a world and languages before he created a story around those two things. And so it has verisimilitude to a degree that nothing else will ever be able to touch. It's so grounded in reality. And that really has influenced my writing. I keep my sci-fi stories very close to the heart and grounded in reality. So, Lord of the Rings, Tolkien, Michael Crichton. I love Suzanne Collins and the Hunger Games series and her other
Sure.
works.
Yeah.
Tom Clancy, John Grisham, Marie Lu. Absolutely love Dave Barry. He's satire.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
I grew up with my mom laughing, randomly out in the other room of the house, and I had no idea. And then we finally put two and two together. Oh, she's reading Dave Barry. Okay, I get it. Um,
Yeah.
I love Dave Barry.
Well, I grew up in Miami, and I don't know if he was in Miami or he was just is syndicated in Miami because he was syndicated everywhere. But I remember reading the Miami Herald and reading Dave Barry's columns and just loving that style, that irreverent, you know, we're so smart, we're stupid kind of. I don't know what, but I loved that.
Yeah, Dave Barry just has been such an inspiration. I wrote a blog as a voiceover artist. It was called It's the Voices in My Head. I published 300 blogs. They were all satirical, a la Dave Barry. And I recently took those and put them in a book that's the best of all of my voiceover blogs. I call it A Lyrical, Empirical, Satirical Miracle. And that is my book on, the best of my 300 voiceover blogs that are all satire. Tip of the hat to Dave Barry. That one just published.
Okay,
So,
so then you're also a satirist. You're
yeah.
also a satirist. So um so let's bring that voiceover piece in just because I'm curious what inspired you to pursue that, career wise at a certain point. I mean, you've continued to do it. You're certainly very prolific as a writer, but how did the voiceover pursuit enter your world?
Well, they didn't predate writing, actually, I should say, because my first writing assignment was 1981. Um, I joined up in voiceovers in 1993 informally, became a formal voiceover artist in 2016, and wrapped a business around it. And right now, I'm the voice of United Healthcare, for example. So you're going to see commercials on TV. That's all union work. It's very well paying, and thank God I got that because the industry is really taking a dive because of AI, lowballing clients, underbidding colleagues, the SAG after strike, the economy. But it was so lucrative for such a long time, and I really enjoyed past tense it. I still do to a certain extent, but my heart, I run two parallel storyteller tracks right now.
Uh-huh.
One of them is I'm a storyteller for other people in my studio right behind me. That's my voiceover booth, and I know you can't see it with the background, but
Yeah.
uh, that's telling other people's stories. I much prefer telling my own, but I love having a dual storyteller track. I did get
Yeah.
into it on accident, though. I was a telemarketer in 93. I was calling businesses, and we wanted them to sponsor local PSAs brought to you as a courtesy by Bob's Plumbing, right? So
Yeah.
we would call Bob's Plumbing. I would press the tape deck. It would be fed into the phone, and I would read a copy of a PSA over that music. And they would go, "Yeah, sure, we'll buy that." And one of them said, "Only we'll buy only if you read." And I went, "Oh, uh, hold please. Can I read this?" I had to like ask. And I went into the studio, put the headphones on, recorded it, and said, "Man, I really like this a lot." So that got me into voiceovers.
Oh, that's great. That's great. You had your start in Bob's Plumbing,
Yeah.
and you know, I think that there is also something to be said for the artistic spirit, people have all kinds of different abilities. It's just a matter of, like you say, Aaron, storytelling. It's a
Hmm.
channel of storytelling. Sometimes it's someone else's stories. I
Yeah.
did that as an actor where, I liked being in my own creations, but I also liked just performing other people's material, just being in plays, being in shows. And then finally let's wrap this up with, your vision for your brand now. Looking ahead, you're just completed some nonfiction stuff. You have still this breadth of material, your library, so to speak, of creations. What's on the horizon, or what's still left to conquer for you?
Yeah. Well, more fiction, definitely more sci-fi. I seem to not be able to get away from the dissonance verse. Um,
Hmm.
on a larger scale, it's an Aaron verse because there is a character who has migrated from the Dissonance saga up here into she's migrated into Forecast. She's in the End of sorts. She's in the Phoenix Experiment. She is my Tom Clancy Denton Voiles character.
Uh-huh.
She's jumped, and I love that. But what I'm working on right now is a series called the Talisman series, and it is of sorts. It's actually a spin-off from Dissonance. So there's a character who had a great backstory, had a great personality and profile that I really wanted to mine, and so that person has now become the protagonist of the Talisman series, but it has its roots back in Dissonance. So I just can't seem to get away from the Dissonance saga or the Dissonance
Yeah.
verse. But
Well, and,
for
and it's yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
oh, well, first one's publishing Halloween, and the other two will follow a few months later.
Oh, awesome. Well, that's exciting stuff. And I love that you have a character who's uh kind of like your Robert De Niro when I make Scorsese's, it's like your creation actually, but she somehow has just a life that is very exciting and allows her to story jump and series jump. That's awesome. Well,
Yeah,
thank you so much for being on. Let the audience know where to find you, and then maybe a tip for writers out there, who are maybe new to the fiction medium in particular, possibly even sci-fi. My son writes sci-fi and loves sci-fi. So
that's great.
yeah, where to find you, and then a little advice.
Absolutely. Well, so it's my favorite question, by the way. So authoraaronryan.com. I have to be clear, it's not awful aaronryan.com. It's although
Awful.
on a lark, I did buy that domain. So if you go to awful Aaron Ryan just through mishearing, it'll actually forward to author Aaron Ryan.
That's
Uh,
funny.
so it's $10 a year, for a laugh. So authoraaronryan.com has links to all the other sites, and all the socials are at the bottom. And that has, there's there. Authoraaronryangroup.com is my private exclusive Facebook group where you can find out discount codes, giveaways, upcoming appearances, news on the screenplay adaptations. I've got 3 that have been adapted and are in film festivals and are being pitched to streaming networks. So really stoked about that. The advice I'd give, not just, I mean, to any creator, not just an author,
Sure.
it was one of the best bits of advice I was ever given. And it was a quote by a former voiceover casting agent who is now an entrepreneur. And she said, someone's endorsement of you or lack thereof has very little to do with your trajectory. I had to ask her to repeat that. It was kind of a wait, what moment.
Yeah.
Someone's endorsement of you as a creator, you're creating things that you put out there and you hope people love and accept and are grateful for and affirm. Whether or not they do, whether or not you get the positive reviews you're hoping for, the sales you're hoping for, the acclaim you're hoping for, whatever, someone's endorsement of you or lack thereof has very little to do with your trajectory. Your trajectory is simply forward in whatever craft you're doing. So let those pats on the back and those nice rubs of the head, they'll come, but you can't create for that purpose. Just create for you.
Alright.
If you liked the show,
Yes, and?
it worked for you,
Yes, then.
subscribe and leave a
Yes, friend.
5-star review.
Yes, friend.
Tell all your friends.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Did I make it clear?
Yes, friend.
Get your branding on
Yes.
before they're gone.
Yes.